Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Venice Vista Arts Coalition Summer Arts Festival. My name is Quentin Ring. I am the Executive Director of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. We are a literary space in Venice, and we're dedicated to supporting writers and nurturing new writing. We're doing that mainly these days through our online workshops program. You can check out more about those workshops at beyondbaroque.org. Taking a writing workshop is a great way to pass the time if you find yourself quarantining. And we are presenting tonight our first ever online poetry reading. We have 4 sensational poets joining us. They are Bridgette Bianca, who is the author of Be Trouble, a wonderful first book of poetry. We have Jose Hernandez Diaz, the author of The Fire Eater, also a first book of poetry. It's a great collection of surrealist prose poetry. We have Joseph Rios, the author of Shadow Boxing, which is one of my favorite books of poetry from a couple of years ago. And we have Sholeh Wolpe, the author of The Conference of Birds. Sholeh has really established herself as one of the great talents in LA poetry today. So thank all 4 of you for being part of this reading. I'm a huge fan of your work. I'm really excited to hear you read in just a moment. And thank you to our audience for tuning in wherever you are. Thank you for supporting the arts in Venice and Mar Vista. This is a fundraiser for the West Side Food Bank. So if you're able to make a contribution, it really does help a great deal. It's a great help to the neediest families in our community. Just a couple words on the theme of the festival. The theme is Reimagine. That theme was selected as we were realizing that we were all being asked to reimagine our lives and our society. But not only being asked to reimagine society because of this crisis, but because the crisis itself laid bare the ways in which our society already need reimagining. I'm thinking, of course, in particular of the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. These murders are only the latest in a long string of murders of black men and women by police and by white vigilantes. And I think inherent in this theme of reimagining, which touches on a huge number of interlocking issues, but inherent in this theme is the commitment to reimagining racial justice in this country. And inherent in that is the idea that we all, as artists spaces, as arts communities, need to commit ourselves to the cause of anti-racism. We need to commit ourselves to saying Black Lives Matter. And beyond that, we need to commit ourselves to doing the work of anti-racism. So I hope you enjoy the show tonight. We have 4 very different voices, all speaking, I think, to this theme of reimagining. But let's take the arts. Let's reimagine the world, and even more importantly, let's put the work into changing it. So I hope you enjoy the poetry, and thanks so much for tuning in.
Hello, my name is Bridgette Bianca, and I'll be reading from my collection, Be Trouble. Tonight's poems will all be dedicated to Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, all of our fallen, all of our restless, all of our weary. We stand with you. Black Lives Matter. And who will be next? We keep planting these black bodies over and over again, hoping they'll bring us fruit one day. But all I see are rows and rows of smoke. All I smell is tear gas. Someone is telling us to move on, to push our worries back into the earth. But what are we to do with these bones? We till this soil for the new season, forgetting last year's attempts, and there, these black bodies gleaming white in the sun. These bones just won't stay down.
Hi, this is Jose Hernandez Diaz, reading from Norwalk, California for the Venice Mars Vista Arts Festival. Shout out to Beyond Baroque for the invite. Today I'm going to read some poems from my collection of prose poems called The Fire Eater, available through Texas Review Press and distributed by Tamu Press. After I read from the chapbook, I'm going to read some new poems from the Southampton Review. I'm going to start off with the lead poem from the book that was published in Southeast Review in February of this year, The Fire Eater. Fire Eater performed his tricks on Hollywood Boulevard by the entrance to the 101 freeway. It was autumn. Just as he was about to inhale the bright flame, however, he slipped on a leaf and fell into the street. A motorcycle swerved out of the way and barely missed him. The Fire Eater quickly got up and jumped back onto the curb. He counted his lucky stars. 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars. There was no reason to go on. At least he felt that way at the moment. His family of circus performers had abandoned him. He would have to make it on his own. Perhaps he could go back to school. Who was he kidding? Eating fire was his only skill. It wasn't much of a marketable skill either. Maybe he could make it on America's Got Talent, or get hired in a Vegas show. These were his hopes and dreams, but were they merely pipe dreams? For now, at least, he would have to be content with eating fire on Hollywood Boulevard by the 101 freeway. Maybe someone important would discover him there tomorrow. Maybe the flame would no longer scar his autumnal heart. The next prose poem is called The Fire, again with a theme of fire, and it was published in the Cincinnati Review. The Fire. A man woke up in a burning building. He ran to the front door. It was jammed. Then he threw a chair to the window. It shattered and glass fell everywhere. He was careful as he climbed out of the window. It was a 3-story building. A preacher was down at the bottom, waiting to catch him. He jumped into the preacher's arms. On impact, they both transformed into pigeons. They flew away from the fire, far away from the fire. So the first 3 prose poems open up with the theme of fire and flames, and this next one is called The Flame, and it was published in Hotel America in spring of this year. The Flame. A flame rode a skateboard to the corner liquor store. It bought a pack of Marlboro Lights. It packed the smoke and ignited a cigarette on its forehead. It inhaled the smoke. The flame rode a skateboard down Beach Boulevard. It did tricks on the board. It saw a lady flame leave Target and asked for her phone number. It was denied. The flame continued on the board all the way to Pacific Coast Highway. It began to rain. The flame pondered the redundancy of rain. Suddenly, it fell off the board and scattered into ash. The flame was no longer a flame. No longer a flame. A flame. Flame.
This is Sholeh Wolpe, and this is a brief history of us. Chapter 1. You smack her with a 99-cent yellow plastic swatter. Knock her dead to a far corner of the room, except that in a second or two her legs launch into labored twitches like an out-of-practice can-can dancer. Boggy eyes, blinkless in life, flutter as she lifts one vein-swollen wing, then another, her ovipositor glowing its small Hiroshima. She shivers her antenna, wiggles her posterior zombie dance that lifts its holy hullabaloo and takes off in a ferocious buzz so stentorian it echoes from the old pine table legs and rickety mismatched chairs. Chapter 2. The housefly's palate, while indiscriminate by nature, feces, vomit, or your plate of beans, is refined in its after-death. They go for delicacies such as the white of your eyes. Kamikaze gourmets, they target the inside of your toes. Bellies bulging, they machine gun zombie eggs into your open bag of chips, the cut melon on the chopping board, or fine lining of your baby's diaper. Chapter 3. Weapons of mass destruction gather dust. Tanks rust in the rain. TSA is disbanded while Arab, Jew, and Hindu, Pope and Mullah, mothers and generals pool resources and brains to build a Lilliputian army girded with sharp scimitars the size of trimmed fingernails. a legion of zombie fly slayers riding tiny air horses to battle while we install screens on windows and pine for a stroll in the woods, sun by the ocean, even a catnap in that hammock right over there, out in the garden, under that tree, forgetting everything we imagined separated us. Human from human.
Hello, everyone out there in Beyond Baroque land. My name is Joseph Rios. I'm a poet from Fresno, California, and I live here in Los Angeles. And I'm really excited to be a part of this reading, and always excited to be a part of any reading at Beyond Baroque. And really also very excited to hear from Bridgette and from Jose, who I haven't heard from in a very long time. And you know, Bridgette especially is always a force, and really looking forward to seeing those videos later on today. And I want to start, I'm going to read two pieces, one of which is from this book, Latinx. It's an anthology of Latinx poets and writers that recently was released. Was edited by Felicia Rose Chavez, the poet Jose Olivares, a good friend of mine, and Willie Perdomo is a longtime friend and mentor as well, and I'm totally proud to have a piece in here, a couple pieces in here, and to be in with so many of my friends and heroes. Honestly, if there's one book I would recommend to anyone teaching young people, it would be this anthology. Like if students are looking for living poets, living Latinx poets, this is a one-stop shop. So the poem I'm going to read, the first poem I'm going to read is here in the book. It's called A Fellowship Application, and came from an actual prompt for a fellowship that I didn't win, and hopefully this didn't have something to do with that. But the prompt was, please provide an introduction to your work, 250 words. My response. My poetry comes from a big water truck, bouncing and exhaling smoke over dry molds of wheel marks made by other trucks that passed the same way sometime last season at the same packing house in a different no stoplight Central California town with another name that will be mispronounced in perpetuity, which is to say forever, as ever, and this error will be defended until it is deemed correct and most true. Amen. 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 This is the poetry of a man in the passenger seat of said truck. He's trying to light a cigarette amidst all the vibrations, and the damn truck keeps moving. Chewy's talking again. I gotta get his words on the page, but this match keeps blowing out. These poems, though, they want to be about something beautiful, like birds and shit. Chewy keeps talking about birds. One hand on the wheel, he leans forward to look up from under his cap. When his other hand enters my space and fingers out like he's flying, or the birds are flying, or we're flying, or the truck is flying. We're all birds now, and I still can't get this shit lit. The water treatment plant is an entire ecosystem of migratory birds, he says. This poetry is for the birds. It wasn't until my third week at work that I realized me and Chewy are probably cousins. Some border-crossing mess, a case of mistaken identity, papers and names on paper. It only counts if it's on paper. Unfamiliar words that don't match faces. I could quote Borges again, but I'll chill. FYI, I just went over the word cap. Somebody baptized their first cousin and, like me, didn't realize it. Grandma's porchside pre-9/11 mention is the only living artifact. Art is fact. Art are facts. The packing house is full of abuelas, full of art are facts. All forthcoming poetry will attempt to revive dead abuelas, and their art is facts. One of those decolonized sisters told me this hummingbird was my abuela. Okay, I'm with that. Henceforth, all abuelas are hummingbirds. Poetry should be full of abuelas, full of birds who take you to the doctor and tell your teacher that you got diarrhea, so don't trip if he's got to go to the bathroom more than once. Full of birds who know that why you're passed out on the living room floor, but still make you eggs and papas in the afternoon. Birds who scrapbook all your articles in local paper about Division II softball and community college wrestling. Birds, old birds too busy dirty packing muscat and wonderfuls. Birds that get diabetes. Birds that watch professional wrestling and own cats with feline leukemia. I hate that my poetry has to be about this shit. But it's true. It's true, Bill Moyers. It's true, Harold Bloom. I'm not making it up, Don Sharon. I see you over there, Tom Lutz. The rivers in these poems got arsenic in them, and not in a funny Cary Grant way. More like bye-bye Thea Sissy way, bye-bye Chicana role model, bye-bye ice worker, bye-bye Thea Cookie, and bye-bye Coach Garza kind of way. And each and every night I'll write you faithfully, all of you. And maybe then I'll stop telling this tired-ass story. But anyway, Chewy says I gotta go back to work now, and I finally got the cigarette going. Jesus had a lighter the whole time, that bastard. I'll tell you this, ain't nothing in the whole world like blowing smoke in the middle of a newly plowed field like this one. Punto, neta, bye.
This next poem is called The Man in the Antlers, and it was published in Bennington Review, and it was also read at Bennington College's convocation a couple years ago. The Man in the Antlers. A man picked wild berries in the forest, ate them, and suddenly grew antlers. He was shocked. He ran around in circles. Why? Then he saw a small creek. He looked into the water. He saw his antlers in the reflection, strong and sharp. Why me? He said. Why me? Then a bear approached him. He was startled for a moment, but then charged at the bear with force. This next prose poem was published in Hobart in 2015. It's called The Red House. The Red House. The Red House has 5 windows. The Red House does not have any new clocks. The Red House has 3 Rottweilers, all of them named Samuel. The Red House has quiet afternoons, despite all the furniture. The Red House has bougainvillea running along a brick wall. The Red House has a blue fire pit. The Red House has 7 candles instead of lamps. The Red House was never yours. The Red House has a lime interior. The Red House has 2 roosters and an ant problem. The Red House never forgives. The Red House is not painted red. The Red House has 3 orange trees in the backyard. The Red House is not for sale. The Red House doesn't write during holidays. The Red House has doors as mirrors. The Red House, pale and drunk at night. And the next 2 prose poems I'm going to read to close it out are from my Man in the Pink Floyd Shirt series. And the first one is called The Astronaut. The Astronaut. A man in a Pink Floyd shirt woke up on his living room couch. There was a party going on in the house. The man in the Pink Floyd shirt didn't recognize anyone at the party. He wasn't drunk. He tapped the man in a green sweater's shoulder. "Hello, who are you?" he said. He asked. "I'm Gary," he said. "Yes, but what are you all doing here?" the man in the Pink Floyd shirt asked. "We are celebrating your graduation from astronaut training, of course," the man in the green sweater said. "Of course," the man in the Pink Floyd shirt said. He didn't actually recall being an astronaut. In fact, he hated math and science. He was more of an arts and crafts guy. Besides, he had an incredible fear of heights. The next thing he knew, the guests were handing out glasses for champagne and a toast. They started chanting, "Speech, speech." The man in the Pink Floyd shirt grabbed a glass of champagne and stood in front of the eager crowd. He raised his glass, cleared his throat, and spoke. "I'd like to thank you all for coming here tonight. I'm honored by your presence. I wanted to be an astronaut since I was a little boy growing up in the mountains of Arizona. I used to dream about existence beyond the clouds. Now my dreams are coming true. Reach for the stars, friends. Never let fear defeat you. Cheers to space. Cheers to all of you," he said. The crowd erupted in cheer, and they clinked their glasses together. They had long conversations until after midnight when they began to disperse. After everything was gone, the man in the Pink Floyd shirt went to sleep and dreamt about another world's dawn, another galaxy even.
An exasperated black woman said, "Fuck it, I'll do it." It is fall. I have recently buried a loved one. It is the morning after the election. You are disheveled and teary. You assume the pain in my eyes is yours. You hug me, a stranger. You say, "It's so good to talk to someone who understands," and I don't remember speaking, and I don't remember your face, stranger. Later, I only realize I'm crying by the look on my students' faces. This is not a poem. It is still fall. Someone drove past my window and shouted, "Fucking niggers," and only I seem to hear. It is a few days after the election. You come to me for confession. You are mad at yourself for being so naive. I tell you the word nigger is a threat to my safety. You are late and have to go, and I am alone again. This is my life. It is spring. I have buried another loved one. I feel faint after yawning. It is months after the election. You are growing angrier every day. You ask me if I feel the same. I've been invisible, but now I was useful, so I say, I am a Black woman, and I am invisible again. This is not a poem. It is almost summer. You blurt out, ever since the election, you wake up wanting to kill yourself. And you laugh. This is my life. It is fall. 194 Black people have been shot and killed by the police. 73 more than the last time I read this. What will that number be by winter? This is not a poem. I had a student, Terry, whose father was shot in the head while lying face down with his hands cuffed behind his back. The police pursued him because he didn't have the proper reflective lights on his bicycle. This is my life. You may have noticed that I like to use my hands when I speak. This can be seen as aggressive, and I might frighten you into killing me. This is not a poem. Do you understand how taboo it is for Black women like me to go to therapy? Because we're supposed to be strong for everyone? This is my life. I am sorry that you only realized the world was fucked up when your sisters voted with their white skin and not their pink pussies. This is not a poem. While you vomit angst into my lap, forgive me for not holding back your hair in solidarity. This is my life, so I'm a little busy. A Saturday night. What do you do when you see lights in the rearview mirror? What do you do when a siren loops around your throat? What do you do when you are on the street in a group of 4 or more? What do you do when you are alone? What do you do when you know you don't have anything in your pockets that can hurt the officer? Keep your eyes on the road and find a safe spot to pull over. Turn that noise on your radio down before the officer approaches your window. Didn't they teach you in high school that 4 or more of you is a gang? Don't you know you shouldn't be out here alone? Don't you know that your skin was weaponized in the womb? Speak only when spoken to. Don't matter that you wasn't doing nothing. Don't matter that we doing this all the time. Don't matter that we don't be bothering nobody. Don't drop the G's from your ings. Don't ask questions. Ask permission to reach into your purse for your wallet. You should just clench your license between your teeth and smile while you are doing it. Not too hard. Black joy is suspicious. Keep your hands above your waist. Keep your hands on the hood of the car. Keep your fingers locked behind your head. Take your foot off the gas pedal. Keep your feet more than shoulders width apart. Keep your eyes on the ground. Do not stare defiantly into the officer's eyes. Do not call out in pain when his knee is on your neck. Go limp like a rag doll when they grab you. Do not bristle when the officer cups your vagina. If you ever find yourself being Black on a Saturday night, don't.
I'd like to introduce to you a very important poet, a poet who Rumi considered his master. His name is Attar. He is a 12th century Sufi mystic poet from Iran. And what I'm going to read for you is from The Conference of the Birds, published by W.W. Norton, which I translated. It's very important to get the right translation. The book is the very entertaining story of the birds of the world who gather to seek their beloved And of course, they go on this journey, and the journey takes them through 7 valleys. I'm going to read for you a little section from the Valley of Detachment. But something about Attar and this book, I promise you, you need to keep this book by the side of your bed, because I promise if you open it at random anytime, it's going to speak to your soul and tell you something you really need to know. And something that I love about Attar is that he does not sugarcoat, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful advice. This is a section from the Valley of Detachment called Counsel of the Learned Way. And they asked this very wise man, seer of the way, tell us something. And he said, whether you spend a lifetime upon a throne or down below on a carpet of dust, you'll find that whatever was, is, and will be, down to the tiniest atom, good and bad, all are but a single drop in one ocean. Then what difference does it make? What came from what, or from whom? The Valley of Detachment isn't easy nor smooth. If you fancy it's a breeze, that's because you are ignorant. If your heart's blood floods the road and forms a sea, still you will not have advanced more than a single step. If you walk myriad roads without stopping, it's as if you've taken just one step. No wayfarer can see the road's end. No one has found the cure for what must be endured. If you halt, you turn to a rock, despondent, immobile as a corpse. If you hurry and run, you never hear the call, enter. It won't do to stand still or to hurry, to die or to be born. It's difficult business. What's the use? It's a tough job without a teacher. So what's the use? Expect and don't expect, silent seeker. Abandon greed for work, yet keep on task. Don't pay so much attention to how you're doing. Instead, expand the work. Don't value what you do, yet increase the doing of it. That way, if at the journey's end your labor has been useful, you'd have accrued a good deal. And if it was for nothing, so what? Now you will have eternity to make up for lost time. Abandon work, yet work with abandon. Work little, but work hard at working too. How can you know what needs to be done or not? If only you could, and could manage it too. Become independent and detached, whether you're a musician or a professional mourner. Here the lightning flash of detachment thunders from a single spark. Get to know Attar. Get to know the Conference of the Birds.
The next one, and this will be my last poem. It was a commission recently commissioned by LA Metro. They asked me to write a piece basically as like an ode to the metro workers, drivers, operators, train operators, bus operators, and this is what I came up with. I called it an ode to the essential for metro workers and their riders during the quarantine of 2020. An ode to the señoras in cloth Virgen de Guadalupe masks waiting at a bus stop together on Western and Slauson. They are a reminder that we've been able to smile with our eyes the whole time. An ode to their grinning eyes. An ode to the OG hustling on the 210, selling latex gloves, N95s, and photos of Kobe and Nipsey. An ode to the marathon we're still running. An ode to those who got off the bus too soon. An ode to the Guatemalan line cook at Wilshire, Vermont, leaning up against a tree with his work shirt over his shoulder. An ode to trees that tall, swaying every which way, with roots so deep they come out in el otro lado, which is to say, the other side. An ode to el otro lado and everything withheld in my translation. An ode to the old Chinese women on the Gold Line who wore masks and face shields before it was cool and mandatory. I'm certain they will outlive us all. An ode to elder wisdom. An ode to the transfer bus kneeling each time they get on and off. An ode to this simple and deserved reverence, like giving up a seat, washing your hands, or putting on the damn mask. An ode to my mail carrier, Joses, who plays music from his knapsack. His wife and daughter live out of town. One day a week he plays with his toddler through closed windows and sleeps in a tent in their backyard. An ode to the stars over him, not visible before the quarantine. An ode to Vida's hand slapping the glass against his. An ode to the flutter of joy in receiving a letter or seeing a healthy daughter organize her toys in the living room. An ode to my new neighbor, Anthony, who got into town in March. His mother, Annelies, stays in a nursing home where she was exposed to COVID-19. He takes the 76 bus to El Monte twice a week to visit her through a wall of glass. He shouts to her through the phone and repeats simple phrases like, "How are you feeling?" and "Promise me you'll remember to eat." Even without traffic, it takes him 70 minutes each way. Before the diagnosis, they hadn't talked in years. Let's write an ode to mothers and their sons, an ode to forgiveness and healing forever. An ode to Jermaine cutting fruit at Trader Joe's, an ode to Jeffrey cutting fruit at Superior, an ode to Karina cutting fruit at John's, an ode to Noe cutting fruit at H Mart, an ode to Noble from Smart and Final, who left his name tag and hairnet on the red line, an ode to names, their names, you know them now. I pray you do not forget them. I pray for bulletproof gloves, iron lungs, and hazard pay. An ode to organizers, an ode to unions and picket lines. I pray for a living wage, retirement, and good health to enjoy them. An ode to the metro workers moving through the front lines of this poem. An ode to the one who recognized me even with the masks and a half-empty bus between us. I saw her in the overhead mirror and she saw me. The yellow line has moved farther back, but we still can say hello. I wanted to tell her this, and I still don't know a fancy or poetic way to say it. I needed this ride. I'm glad you came when you did. Thank you. An ode to the essential phrase, an ode to the faith of countless riders standing on platforms and at stops who feel the same way. An ode to the operators. We know this now and we can't unknow it. This city will not get anywhere it's going without you. Thank you.
So the last prose poem I'm going to read from the collection is called The United States of the Moon, and it was published in Guest House in December of last year. The United States of the Moon. A man in a Pink Floyd shirt fell asleep on a rocking chair on the moon. He had a dream about the government. The government gave him a salary of $235,000 per year because he was a famous astronaut. He was building a civilization on the moon. The nation was going to be called the United States of the Moon. His chair was still rocking as he slept. 15 of his fellow astronauts had come with him to start a civilization on the moon. They were from various Earth countries, including Mexico, Japan, and Australia. None of the astronauts were very good at poker. One of them was the saint. The rest were common astronauts. Then a moonquake happened. The man in a Pink Floyd shirt jumped out of his rocking chair. He bounced around the moon. It shook for an hour. When it was over, all that survived were the spaceship and the man in the Pink Floyd shirt. He boarded the spaceship with tears in his eyes. He flew toward Earth, wounded but not defeated. Again, so this collection is available through Texas Review Press, and Tamu Press distributes it. And also I have signed copies available through my DMs, or email me at josehgz1984@gmail.com. And I'm going to end by reading some new prose poems from the Southampton Review that was published this spring. The first prose poem I'm going to read is called El Sombrero. El Sombrero. A man fell into the ocean. The water was blue and green. It was the beginning of winter. Luckily, he wore a giant sombrero. He jumped into the sombrero and floated along the shore. The inside of the sombrero was warm and leathered. The clouds spelled out the word ocean. Inevitably, the sombrero landed ashore and the man stepped onto the cool sand. As the moon rose, he sang a ranchera. He was very happy. He walked home beneath the moonlight, but left the sombrero behind. It was ruined from the water, but it had saved his life. And the last poem I'm going to read is called Enough, and it was published in the Southampton Review. Again, thank you to Beyond Baroque for the invite. Enough. You will never be enough. Not Chicano enough. Not Pocho enough. Not Mexican enough. Not Latinx enough. Not American enough. Not Californian enough. Not Southern Californian enough. Not LA County enough. Not Orange County enough. Not enough of a whole entity. Not enough of a clear sky. Not enough of a bottle of tequila. Not enough of a slice of apple pie. But you are everything and nothing, all at once. You are a modern mariachi on a tangled road. Be vigilant. Exist. Again, shout out to Beyond Baroque. Thank you.
When I was 13 years old, my parents sent me to the island of Trinidad to live with my aunt and my grandmother. And it was for the first time that I had left Iran and experienced another culture. And it was the first time that I understood the idea of otherness. So this is a poem from Keeping Time with Blue Hyacinths. And the poem is titled The House on Stilt Legs. I have just arrived, and the air is wet. The breeze lifts up my skirt to have a look. The neighbors file in, bring baked plantains, chickpea roti, goat curry so spicy my eyes melt. They finger my curls, touch my long black eyelashes, laugh. In the street, boys hiss at my back with lips, tongue, and breath. Young men emerge skinny and dark from among tall sugarcane fields, machetes in hand. Just for you, they say, and pull out long, clean, fat stalks, bleeding sugar from the cut. The four-leafed clover holes that line the edges below my bedroom ceiling are portholes to the stars. Fireflies come in with the breeze, turn my mosquito net into a green flashing southern sky. I tell them about Tehran's dusty streets and high walls, gardens where every tree steals innocence from eyes, where every rose offers her thorns to stitch mouths, where crows blacken the sky, snitching on the comings and goings of the moon. I sketch in the air the bell jar in which I lived and almost died. Show them the roof of my mouth, where a secret grows like moss, the inside of my belly button, where the cord to my homeland's womb remains uncut.
The talk. Lesson number 1. No toy guns. No running in public, no hands in pockets, no outside voices. Act like you got the sense God gave you. Act like you've been somewhere. Act like you got somewhere to be. Act like you got a mama who raised you within an inch of your life. Don't you cut up in front of these white people. Do you want them to take you away from me? Tie all bags at the top before entering. Don't touch anything you don't plan to buy. Didn't I tell you to take your hands out of your pockets? Don't swing your arms when you walk. Take your hands off your imagination. You acting like you grown? Mind your mouth. I swear for God. You bet not let me catch you doing something you ain't supposed to, and you better not have nothing in your pockets. I don't care what they said to you. I don't care what the others get away with. They are not my child. I don't care if their parents don't hold their breath when they see your face flash across the evening news or their news feeds. Just bring your tail home. I don't want you out of my sight. Because if I can't see you, if I can't hear you breathing, then every siren is always headed in your direction. Every face in despair, every body on the ground, every bowed head in cuffs, every gasp for breath, every plea for mercy, every hand up in the air, every fist balled in anger or fear looks like it belongs to you, and you are mine. But they can take you away from me, don't you know that? So you've got to know better, do better, be better. And I know even that won't really save you, but what else can I do? So lesson number 1, no toy guns, no running in public, no hands in pockets, no outside voices. Act like you got the sense God gave you. Act like you've been somewhere. Act like you got somewhere to be. Act like you got a mama who raised you with every inch of her life, and get your behind back in this house. And don't make me tell you again. You can't spell patriot without R-I-O-T. They won't call it war, but we brace ourselves for attack. We stay ready so we ain't gotta get ready, and yet we are unprepared. They are heavily armed. We are heavily harmed. The preachers tell us we are heavenly armed, and they tell us to forgive. They call for peace and quiet. But we cannot quiet. We speak out riot. We come out riot. We lash out riot. We reach out riot. We shout out riot. And Martin said, a riot is the language of the unheard. Then James said, it is not the black child's language that is despised, it is his existence. And before he was a Mary, Leroy said, let the world be a black poem. And Nikki said, maybe I shouldn't write at all but clean my gun. And Malcolm said, revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And Gil said, the revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
What's up, everyone? That's it for the poetry for this evening. I just want to say thank you to Bridgette, and thank you to Jose, thank you to Joseph, thank you to Sholeh. You guys are amazing poets and amazing readers, and it's a real pleasure to have you with us this evening. And I also want to say thank you to all of our audience for tuning in. If you're interested in learning more about Beyond Baroque, please go to beyondbaroque.org. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter at BBLitArts. If you go to any of our social media or to our website, you can find more information about how to purchase our authors' books. Please do support them. This is a very difficult time for writers and artists, so the more you can do to help them out by buying their work would be amazing. Up next, we have the Reimagine art show that's put on by the Mar Vista Art Walk. Please stick around for that. And finally, one last thing. This is, as I mentioned before, a fundraiser for the West Side Food Bank. So please, please, please do make some contributions to them. Your money goes a long way, and it's really crucial that we help those who are needy right now. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.